Hey, welcome back to Tech Junior Tutorials. I'm Lee Warwick Jr. and we're doing Advent of Code, and we're about to talk about day 8. So it's been a busy weekend. Like I said in the previous video, I've been lucky that I've been able to get these done on time without spending too much time on them. I did stay up pretty late yesterday on day 7, but thankfully day 8 was a bit more of a softball. So let's check out what they want for day 8. So the puzzle for day 8 is space image format. Basically, they tell you that you've got some proprietary Elven image format, not format, encoding system where they've sent you an image and you need to decode the image. You don't do that for part 1. Part 1 is basically double checking that you've got the correct image or signal or whatever. So they tell you that you've got this input, which if we look at it is just a big old string of zeros, ones, and twos. And they tell you that your image is, where are we at? 25 pixels wide and 6 pixels tall, but it has multiple layers to it. So each layer is stacked on top of the other layer. So you've got multiple 25 by 6 layers stacked directly on top of each other, and that's how you get the image. But we don't do that right away. What we do first is we check each layer for the amount of digits of zeros, or the amount of 0 digits. Gosh, I'm a little bit tired. So we check the layers and count all the zeros in each layer, and then for the one with the fewest zeros, what is the number of ones multiplied by the number of twos? So this was a little bit more straightforward. Let's check it out. Here, I had to modify my input reading code a little bit. So I just, because it tripped me up because I'm so used to getting a list of numbers for an input. Again, this is just one giant string. There's no commas separating it. So for the input, I just read that string. And then I just create just to be lazy, create a list, and then just loop over the string, and for each character in the string, shove it into the list. So then, just doing a little quick math, 25 by 6 is 150 pixels for each layer. So I don't even care about height and width for part 1. I just, for each group of 150, shove that into a 2D list. So I've got my layers, and then each layer in there is going to be another list of 150 pixel values. So I do that, and then I loop over the layers and do another nested loop where for each layer I have a number of zeros, number of ones, number of twos, and then if the pixel is a 0, 1, or 2, add to that counter. And then I did a little, instead of being lazy and putting min zeros as 0 or something, that logic was kind of funky. I read this really quickly this morning, and I thought they were looking for the max zeros. So I was a little confused, but for min zeros, just see, like, have I created that variable yet? If not, check to see if the current number of zeros is less than that. If it is, that number of zeros is the new lowest number of zeros. And then, gosh, again, being tired, I have this printed twice. Do 1 times 2's, number of 1's times number of 2's, and then just print that. So if we run this, get 1935. I don't even know what this other print statement is. Print the number of layers. Yeah, we don't really need that. So that one was not too bad. That one took really maybe like 15, 20, 30 minutes. I don't know. I can't really remember. Maybe longer. I'm embarrassed to say. But let's look at part 2, because that's where the rubber meets the road usually. So for part 2, now we've got a little algorithm to work with where we've got to check each layer basically and find out what the pixel value is, and then print it at the end because they're looking for a message after decoding your image, which was kind of interesting. So basically the rule is, so if you've got this input, right? So again, a test case to use, and a 2x2 image, right? As you walk through this, if the value is a 0 or a 1, well, let's back up a little bit. So what they tell you is that the layers are rendered with the first layer in front and the last layer in the back. So you can't just overwrite and grab the last layer, basically, because you're looking at it from the first layer down through everything to the last layer. So what they tell you is that if the first layer has a transparent value, which is 2, and the second layer has a 1, then that 2 becomes a 1. If it's a 0 and then it's a 1, it's just going to be a 0 because that whatever color that is, black or white, you can't see through that black or white, but you can see through a 2 value. So I was going to, like, my mind went to rendering this backwards or stacking them the other way on top of each other or something like that. But instead of doing that, I just figured, okay, well, if it's a 2, don't update it, basically. Or I'm sorry, if the value is 2, it's transparent. So the next value that comes behind it will be a 0 or 1. Update it to that, and then after that, never change it again, basically. So they tell you that if you have this input and it's a 2x2, you should get an image that looks like this, which was awesome because, again, it gives you a test case to work against. So for this one, I basically deleted everything except for my inputs code, and then I figured, okay, if I've got a height of 6 and a width of 25, so let's say for our test case, just going back to that, so basically, instead of rendering the first layer and then checking everything after that, I just rendered a layer of all 2s because that would be like transparent everything. And then basically, as my code runs, I check each pixel value against the current spot in the layer. And then if it is a 2 or there's a none there, go ahead and assign the current pixel to that spot. I rewrote this about 9 different times in 9 different ways, different kind of loops and stuff, wondering if Python had bit me again with this like reference stuff that's a little bit different from JavaScript. So basically I was having a lot of trouble where I had like a 1 and then a 0. So instead of 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, I had 0, 1, 0, 1, and I could not figure out why. And so I thought it was my loop logic or some kind of like stale reference or something like that. I had a bunch of print statements in here. Basically what it was that when I created my empty image array, so 2D array, I did it incorrectly. I did something like image is equal to none times 5 or something like that. Well, times 2 times 2, thinking that would give me a 2x2 array. What this does is it gives you that, like if you print this out, you'll get a 2x2 array. But the second array is a copy of the first array, and it has a reference to the first array. So that's why I was getting, instead of 0, 1, 1, 0, I was getting 0, 1, 0, 1 because it was treating those as the same array, which was bad. So I did some Stack Overflow searching, found out the correct way to create an empty 2D list in Python, and used that, and then that solved my my woes. So using the test case here, can see there I get the 0, 1, and the 1, 0. So I knew I was probably in good shape. And then if you can, I don't know, it's kind of hard to read this. Also tried to, down here when I was printing this, so if you print row in image and just print the row, you'll get a bunch of commas in between everything. I was like, man, it'd be really cool to join these with, take like each number, convert it to a string, join all the strings together, and then print like one block. So maybe it would be a little bit more visible. It wasn't. So not only did I spend a lot of time trying to do that in Python, but it was like unreadable after I did that anyway. So what I landed on was kind of doing the same thing except putting a space in there. And then again, this code is like Stack Overflow code. So I didn't even know there was an optional end parameter for print in Python. And this is a return character so that you wouldn't have a brand new line in between each one. But if you can see this, it's like CFLUL, which was the output that they were looking for, or message. So this is, I'm kind of sad to say that I didn't enjoy this one too much because like Python ruined it for me a little bit with the stale references and the looping shenanigans. Just I guess the growing pains of learning a language, because this is actually a really cool puzzle to be able to take these inputs and convert it into an actual thing that you can look at. It's kind of like the first visual puzzle that we've had so far, which was pretty neat. So I imagine everybody got like different letters in here based on some kind of like generated input, which is really awesome when you think about it. So that part was really exciting. Cool. So that's all I've got for day 8. Hopefully everybody is keeping pace. I know I keep my eye on the leaderboard, at least the couple private ones that I'm on, and I see like people are everybody has a life, so it's kind of hard to keep up with these. But I think they're a lot of fun. It's good practice for learning a language. It's good practice in your current language, and it's really good practice for I think code interviews, because better to like cry here than to do it in front of a whiteboard or something. So yeah, this is pretty good training in my opinion, and it's a fun way to get some learning done. You really feel like a kind of a code ninja whenever you actually solve one of these things because they're so difficult. But yeah, that's all I've got for day 8. See you tomorrow for day 9, and don't give up. All right, see ya. Bye.